My dad believed my stepmom's lie. He touched his sister and threw me out of the house with no money at 15. Then I became a rich CEO and exposed her affair. Hey Reddit, long-time lurker, first-time poster. This is going to be a long one, so buckle up. I've been sitting on this story for years, but after what happened yesterday, I need to get it off my chest. Throwaway account for obvious reasons. Several people involved know my main. Never thought I would be one of those people posting my life story on here, but I guess life comes at you in weird ways. So, 31 male now. But this nightmare started when I was just a kid. My mom passed when I was 6 after fighting cancer. It was rough. I still remember sitting in the hospital, not really understanding why Mom was not coming home with us. Dad Steve was completely lost. Suddenly, a single 37-year-old dad with a kid he barely knew how to talk to. He worked construction management, good money, but gone 12+ hours a day. For about 2 years, it was just me, a series of babysitters, and Dad coming home exhausted every night, microwaving whatever frozen dinner he had picked up on the way home. I think he was lonely. I get that now, looking back. But as a kid, I just knew things were about to change when he started having a friend over for dinner repeatedly. That friend was Tiffany. When I was 8, Dad met Tiffany at some work thing, a client appreciation dinner or something. She was 32, pretty in that suburban PTA mom way, with the perfect highlights in yoga pants. Dad was completely taken with her from day one. Within 6 months, they were married in this rushed ceremony that I barely remember, except for the uncomfortable suit Dad made me wear, and how weird it felt to have this stranger suddenly living in our house, sleeping in Mom's old spot. At first, Tiffany seemed cool, made my school lunches, came to my baseball games, the whole stepmom routine. She would ruffle my hair and call me buddy and tell Dad what a great little man I was becoming. I was actually starting to like her. She bought me video games sometimes and let me stay up later than Dad used to. I thought maybe this would not be so bad. But everything changed when she got pregnant with Lily. It was like someone flipped a switch. Suddenly, I was just in the way. Dad was always pretty strict, but with Tiffany constantly in his ear, he became impossible. I busted my ass on a science fair project in 7th grade, stayed up 3 nights straight building this sick model of a hydroelectric dam that actually generated electricity. Won 2nd place, which was huge since I sucked at school. Dad's response, 2nd place is just the first loser, while Tiffany smirked behind him. Meanwhile, Lily could scribble some crayon nonsense, and they would act like she was a prodigy. Looking back, I probably had undiagnosed ADHD. I could not sit still, could not focus, always in trouble at school. But instead of maybe taking me to a doctor, Dad would just yell at me to act normal like other kids, while Tiffany nodded along like I was defective merchandise she wanted to return. When Dad was at work, Tiffany showed her true colors. She would accidentally shrink my clothes in the wash, make dinner, but forget to make enough for me. Once she threw out my entire baseball card collection, claiming they were cluttering up the house, even though they were stored in boxes under my bed. When I told Dad, he just shrugged. Tiffany is trying to teach you organization, he said. Right. Her mind games were the worst, though. She would move my homework so I could not find it, then tell Dad I was irresponsible. If something broke, it was somehow always my fault. Dad believed every word because Tiffany was a master manipulator. She could cry on command, and my dad would lose his mind trying to fix whatever was bothering her. By 14, I was the family scapegoat. Everything wrong was my fault, and Dad was too whipped to question it. I remember this one time Lily had a dance recital. She was always in some activity or another, ballet, gymnastics, piano lessons, while my requests to join the basketball team were met with, "We cannot afford it right now." Anyway, I was supposed to be watching her practice in the living room while Tiffany was making dinner. I was trying to finish my math homework at the same time, and I looked down for maybe 30 seconds. In that time, Lily tried to do a twirl, knocked over Mom's old vase, the one thing of hers I had managed to keep, and it shattered. When Tiffany came running in, Lily immediately pointed at me and said, "Mike, push me." She was only 5, but she had already learned how the household worked. I started to defend myself, but Tiffany slapped me across the face before I could get a word out. The only time she ever hit me, but I will never forget it. She called my dad at work, and when he got home, he took away my PlayStation for 1 month. No matter how much I tried to explain what really happened, no one believed me. That was my life for years. April, right before my 15th birthday. It was a Tuesday, I remember. Because Tuesdays were when Tiffany had her book club meetings. She always got all dressed up for these things, way more than anyone would for discussing novels with suburban moms. I was cutting through Riverside Park after detention. Got it for talking back to a teacher who was clearly targeting me. Mr. Peterson had been riding my ass all semester, and when he made some comment about me being just like all the other deadbeats who would amount to nothing, I finally snapped and told him to go fuck himself. Not my proudest moment, but I was a kid with no outlet for everything happening at home. Anyway, I was walking home the long way, dreading another night of Tiffany's passive-aggressive comments at dinner, when I spotted her white Lexus SU5 parked near the old band shell. The car was hard to miss. It was brand new, and Dad had complained about the lease payments more than once while telling me we could not afford new shoes for me. I did not think much of it at first, figured she was meeting her yoga friends or whatever. Then I saw her with this guy I recognized, Ryan, some hotshot real estate developer who came to our neighborhood barbecues. Mid-40s, always tanned with perfect teeth and designer clothes. Total douche. They were not just talking. Full-on making out against his Range Rover like teenagers. I ducked behind a tree and watched, completely shocked. When they finally came up for air, Tiffany giggled and ran her hand down his chest. I wanted to puke. I snuck away before they spotted me, heart pounding. Suddenly, a lot made sense. Tiffany's book club that met twice a week, her obsession with her appearance, the packages that arrived that she would quickly hide. The real kicker, I started noticing how Lily, who was 6 by then, did not look anything like my dad. She had this copper red hair, while everyone in our family had dark brown. Her eyes were this weird green color that neither Dad nor Tiffany had. Dad never noticed, but I did. A few weeks later, I was up late playing Xbox when I got thirsty and went downstairs. I heard Tiffany in the kitchen on the phone whispering. I froze on the stairs and pulled my headphones off. "Ryan, he is starting to ask questions," she hissed. "No, not Steve, he is clueless as always. Mike, the kid, he keeps staring at Lily. I think he knows something." My blood went cold. Then she continued. "Steve thinks she hung the moon, but we know who really knocked me up, do not we?" She laughed softly. "I need more money for the private school deposits. Steve thinks it is too expensive, but I am not sending our daughter to some public school shithole." I must have made a noise because she suddenly went quiet. Then in her fake sweet voice, "Hello, is someone there?" Our eyes locked for a second before I bolted back upstairs. I was screwed, and I knew it. After that night, everything got worse. Tiffany watched me like a hawk. If I passed Lily in the hallway, Tiffany would appear out of nowhere asking what I was doing. If I sat next to Lily at dinner, Tiffany would immediately switch seats. She started whispering to Dad constantly. I would walk into rooms and conversations would stop. Dad started giving me these weird looks like he was trying to figure something out. The tension was unbearable. I tried staying away as much as possible, at my buddy Jason's house after school or at the mall until closing, but that just gave Tiffany more ammunition. "Where were you until 9 p.m. on a school night?" she would demand when I got home. Dad looming behind her with arms crossed. "Just at Jason's playing PlayStation 4, I would say." "Liar," she would scream. "I called Jason's mom. She said you left at 5 p.m. I could not exactly tell them I was just walking around Target for hours because I was scared to come home. So Tiffany convinced my dad I was probably doing drugs. My grades completely tanked. No one bothered to ask if I was okay. About 1 month after I overheard Tiffany's phone call, I came home from school and saw 2 police cruisers parked in our driveway. My stomach dropped to my feet. I almost turned and ran. But where would I go? As soon as I opened the door, I heard Tiffany sobbing hysterically in the living room. Dad was standing in the corner looking murderous, and 2 cops were sitting on our couch taking notes. Lily was nowhere to be seen. One of the cops, a bald guy with a mustache, saw me and stood up. "Michael, we need to speak with you in private." He led me to the kitchen while his partner stayed with Dad and Tiffany. That is when he dropped the bomb. According to Tiffany and Lily, I had been inappropriately touching my half-sister. I could not process what he was saying at first. My brain literally could not make sense of the words. "Your stepmother says Lily told her you have been coming into her room at night," the cop said, face like stone. "She says it has been going on for months, but Lily was too scared to say anything." "That is complete shit," I shouted immediately, realizing my mistake. I've never even been alone with you. Tiffany, make sure. I'm going to need you to come down to the station to answer some questions." In the living room, Tiffany was giving an Academy Award-worthy performance. "I should have known," she sobbed. "He has always been troubled. I tried so hard to love him like my own." I looked at Dad, desperate for him to see through this obvious setup. "Dad, she is lying. Tiffany has been cheating with Ryan. Lily is not even your daughter. That is why she is doing this." The room went silent. Then Dad exploded. "You ungrateful piece of shit," he roared, lunging toward me before the second cop intercepted him. "After everything we have done for you, accusing Tiffany of cheating, saying Lily is not mine, you are sick." The cops eventually determined they did not have enough evidence to arrest me, but the damage was done. As soon as they left, Dad threw a garbage bag at me. "You have 15 minutes to pack whatever you can carry and get out of my house," he said, voice terrifyingly calm. "You are dead to me." "Dad, please," I begged, crying. "Tiffany is setting me up because I know about Ryan. Just look at Lily. She has his red hair, his green eyes. She does not look anything like you." Dad grabbed me by the shirt and slammed me against the wall. "Do not you ever say that again about my daughter. Get out." I stuffed whatever clothes I could fit into the garbage bag in my school backpack. I grabbed my Xbox, but Dad ripped it out of my hands. I paid for that. It stays here. As I was leaving, Lily came downstairs looking confused and scared. Tiffany rushed to her, shielding her eyes like I was some monster. That is when I realized Tiffany had coached her. Lily had no idea what she had supposedly accused me of. "You are using your own daughter," I said to Tiffany as Dad shoved me toward the door. "You are going to screw her up for life." Tiffany actually smirked before burying her face in Dad's shoulder, fake sobbing again. The last thing I heard was Dad telling Lily, "It is okay, princess. The bad person is gone now." I was 15 with $37 in my pocket and nowhere to go. That first night was the scariest of my life. I've never told anyone the full details of this part, but fuck it. This is a throwaway account anyway. I walked for hours, no destination in mind, just putting distance between me and what used to be home. I kept thinking Dad would come after me, that he would realize what he had done and come looking. Every car that drove by, I would turn half expecting to see our Chevy pulling up with Dad, leaning out the window telling me to get in, that he was sorry. It never happened. It started pouring around midnight, not a light drizzle but a thunderstorm that soaks you in seconds. I was already exhausted, hungry, and completely lost. I had wandered into a part of town I did not recognize. Lightning flashed overhead, and for the first time in my life I realized I might actually die. Not in some abstract way, but actually die from exposure or hunger or getting mugged. I ended up huddled in the doorway of the public library until morning, using my garbage bag of clothes as a pillow, trying to stay somewhat dry. I could not sleep. Every noise made me jump. A car backfiring. Some guy yelling at his girlfriend as they walked by. Sirens in the distance. I kept thinking about my bed at home, my stupid Star Wars posters on the wall, the familiar sounds of the house settling at night. By morning, I was shivering uncontrollably, my clothes completely soaked. I had no idea what to do next. The reality of my situation hit me all at once. I had no home, no friends to turn to, no money, no plan. I had never felt so alone in my life. When the coffee shop across the street opened, I spent $4 of my precious cash on a hot chocolate just to sit inside and warm up. The barista looked at me suspiciously, a soaking wet teenager with red eyes and a garbage bag. I tried to make that hot chocolate last as long as possible, knowing once I left I had nowhere to go. I tried calling Jason, but his mom answered and immediately hung up when I said my name. Turned out Tiffany had been busy. She had called every parent in town with her story about me being a predator. Not a single friend would talk to me. After 3 days of sleeping in parks and behind the grocery store, I met Frank. He was maybe 50 with a graying beard and eyes that had seen too much. I was trying to clean myself up in the gas station bathroom when he walked in. "You livin' rough, kid?" he asked, watching me wash my armpits in the sink. I was too exhausted to lie. "Got kicked out?" He nodded like this was perfectly normal. "There is a spot under the highway overpass, safer than being alone in the open. Got room for one more if you want." I was desperate enough to follow a stranger to a homeless camp. Frank introduced me to the small group, 4 men and 1 woman, all with their own stories of how they ended up there. They made space for me in their makeshift shelter of tarps and pallets. Frank became my unlikely mentor in homelessness. He taught me which dumpsters had edible food. Bakeries and grocery stores were gold mines, which public bathrooms were safest to use, and how to avoid the cops who would hassle us just for existing. "Library is your best friend," he told me. "Free bathroom, water fountain, air conditioning, and nobody bothers you if you are quiet and do not smell too bad." I spent most days at the library reading whatever I could find to pass the time. I could not go back to school, not with Tiffany's lies spreading like wildfire. Teachers who once liked me now looked at me with disgust. The school counselor called me in once, trying to get me to confess and get help. I dropped out after that. Somehow, Dad never reported me missing. No cops came looking for his runaway 15-year-old son. It was like I had never existed. I tried getting jobs, fast food, car washes, anything. But Tiffany had poisoned the well thoroughly. Even McDonald's would not hire the pervert kid everyone was whispering about. I started doing whatever I could for cash, collecting cans and bottles for recycling money, helping local mechanics with odd jobs, sometimes stealing when I got truly desperate. Winter was the worst. The temperature dropped to single digits, and our camp under the overpass became dangerously cold. The woman, Marie, got pneumonia and disappeared to the hospital. We never saw her again. One night in January, bundled in 3 stolen sweatshirts trying not to freeze to death, Frank sat down next to me. "This is not no life for a kid," he said, his breath clouding in the frigid air. "My brother owns a restaurant up in Portland, about 200 miles north. He owes me one. Says he could use a dishwasher. Cash under the table, no questions asked." I looked around at our miserable camp. "What about you?" Frank shook his head. "I am too old to start over, kid, but you got a chance." The next day, Frank gave me his brother's address and his last $60. "Get your ass on that Greyhound and do not look back," he said. "And Mike, do not end up like me." The bus ride to Portland was the longest 4 hours of my life. I kept my garbage bag on my lap the whole time, terrified someone would steal it. Literally everything I owned was in there. I stared out the window, watching the familiar landscapes of my hometown fade away, replaced by stretches of highway, and eventually the outskirts of a city I'd never visited. It hit me somewhere around hour 3 that I was completely on my own now. No safety net, no one to call if things went wrong. Just a 15-year-old kid with $56 left and a piece of paper with an address scribbled on it. I almost got off at one of the stops to turn back, but the thought of going back to that homeless camp, of seeing the disappointment on Frank's face, I could not do it. Portland was bigger and colder than I expected, way bigger than the suburb I had grown up in. Skyscrapers, busy streets, people everywhere, none of them paying any attention to another teenager wandering around looking lost. I spent my first night in the bus station, clutching my garbage bag of possessions while junkies and other homeless people circled like sharks. I did not sleep, just sat rigid on a bench until morning, my heart racing every time someone walked too close to me. In the morning, I used $2 to buy a cheap map from a convenience store and spent 1 hour trying to figure out where Frank's brother's restaurant was. Finally found it. A small Italian place called Salvatore in a decent part of town. From the outside, it looked fancy. White tablecloths visible through the windows, a polished wooden sign. For a second, I thought Frank had given me the wrong address. No way his brother owned a place like this. When I walked in the back door, the kitchen staff stared at me like I was an alien. One guy, chopping vegetables, gestured toward a door with his knife and said, "Tony's in the office." Tony was nothing like Frank. He was clean-dressed, well-dressed, and clearly successful. Expensive watch, crisp white shirt, hair perfectly styled. He was doing paperwork when I knocked on his open door. He took one look at my filthy clothes and unwashed hair and almost turned me away, but something made him reconsider. Frank said, "You are a hard worker," he said doubtfully. "I am, I promised. I will do anything," he sighed. "Dishwasher, cash daily, and you can sleep in the storage room until you find something better, but if you steal from me or show up high, you are out. Understood?" I worked my ass off at Salvatore. I showed up early, stayed late, and did whatever needed doing without complaint. Tony noticed after a few months he moved me up to prep cook, then line cook. I saved every penny I could and rented a shithole studio apartment with 3 other guys. The real turning point came when I met Jessica. She was a regular at Salvatore. Came in twice a week with her roommate for the pasta special. She always requested my section after I got promoted to waiter, and we would talk whenever the restaurant was slow. Jessica was studying business at Portland State, working on her MBA. She would bring her textbook sometimes, working on assignments between courses. One night she was cursing at her laptop, clearly frustrated. "Fucking corporate finance is going to be the death of me," she groaned when I came to refill her water. I glanced at her screen. "You are calculating the wrong depreciation method," I pointed out. "That is why your numbers do not match the case study." She looked at me like I had grown a second head. "How do you know that?" Truth was, I'd been spending my free time at the public library taking free online business courses. Something about the logical, systematic nature of accounting and finance clicked with my brain in a way school never had. "Just something I picked up," I shrugged. After that, Jessica would bounce ideas off me about her assignments. Sometimes during my breaks, I would sit with her and help her work through problems. She never made me feel dumb for being a waiter instead of a college student. Instead, she kept telling me I was wasting my potential. "You are smarter than half my professors," she said one night. "Why are not you in school?" I gave her the watered-down version that I had had a falling out with my family and had to make it on my own. I did not tell her about the homelessness or Tiffany's false accusations. Some skeletons are better left buried. When I was 19, Jessica helped me get my GED. At 20, I started taking night classes at the community college while working full-time at the restaurant. By 22, I had an associate's degree in business, and Jessica and I were officially dating. Her dad, Richard, was a commercial real estate developer. Built shopping malls and office complexes all over the Pacific Northwest. He was skeptical of me at first. The waiter with no family dating his daughter was not exactly what he had in mind. But Jessica believed in me. When a junior analyst position opened up at her dad's company, she pushed me to apply. "He will not hire me," I said. "He thinks I am not good enough for you." "Apply anyway," she insisted. "I know you can do this." The interview with Richard was brutal. He grilled me for 2 hours on everything from cash flow projections to zoning regulations. But all those hours in the library paid off. I knew my shit. "Where did you learn all this?" he asked finally, genuinely surprised. "I taught myself," I answered honestly. "And your daughter helped." He hired me on the spot. Working for Richard was like getting a master class in real estate development. He was tough but fair, and he recognized my hunger to learn and succeed. Within 2 years, I was managing my own projects. By 26, I was his right-hand man with a corner office and a six-figure salary. Jessica and I got married when I was 27. We bought a beautiful house in an upscale neighborhood, 5 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, a huge backyard with a pool. Our son Jack was born 1 year later. From the outside, my life looked perfect, but I never forgot where I came from. I never forgot what Tiffany did to me, and sometimes late at night I wondered about Lily, the innocent pawn in her mother's sick game. I do not want to make this post any longer than it already is, but the years after meeting Jessica were transformative. I went from being that scared homeless kid to someone with purpose. Jessica saw something in me that I could not see in myself. We moved in together after dating for 2 years. Her parents eventually warmed up to me, especially after I graduated with honors from community college and started making real contributions at Richard's company. I never told Jessica the whole truth about my past until much later. She knew I had family issues and had been on my own since I was young, but I kept the darkest parts to myself, partly out of shame, partly because I wanted to be more than my trauma. Working for Richard was intense, but rewarding. The guy was a genius at real estate development, and I soaked up everything I could learn. I started as basically a glorified assistant, getting coffee and making copies, but I worked my ass off. Stayed late every night studying the business. Started suggesting small improvements to projects. Richard noticed. By 25, I was running my own development projects. By 28, I was overseeing a team of project managers. We specialized in mixed-use urban developments, the kind that revitalize neighborhoods without displacing the original residents. I was proud of the work we were doing. Jessica and I got married in a small ceremony when I was 27. I had no family on my side of the aisle, just Tony, who had become something of a father figure, and a few close friends from work. Jessica never made me feel bad about it. We bought our house 1 year later. It was way more space than we needed, but Jessica fell in love with it immediately. 5 bedrooms, huge backyard, pool, the works, in a neighborhood I never could have dreamed of living in as a kid. Sometimes I would wake up in the middle of the night and walk around just looking at everything, not quite believing it was real. When Jack was born, it changed everything again. Holding my son for the first time, I swore I would never be the kind of father mine was. I would never choose anyone over him. I would always believe him, always have his back. I thought I had put my past behind me. For years, I never looked up my dad or Tiffany online, never tried to find out what happened to Lily. It was like that part of my life was a movie I had watched about someone else until last Tuesday. I was 30, sitting in my office reviewing plans for a new mixed-use development in the downtown area when my assistant buzzed me. "Mike, there is a Steve Walker here to see you. Says he is your father. He does not have an appointment." My blood ran cold. I literally could not move for a few seconds, the name I had not heard spoken in 15 years. My first instinct was to tell her to call security, have him thrown out. Part of me wanted to hide, to pretend I was not there. But curiosity got the better of me. My voice did not sound like my own when I replied, "Send him in." While waiting those few minutes, my mind raced through all the possibilities. Was he here to apologize, to ask for money? Was he dying? Had something happened to Lily? Part of me was that 15-year-old kid again, terrified of the man who had thrown me away. The man who walked through my door was a shadow of the father I remembered. His hair was completely gray. His posture stooped. He had to be pushing 60 now, but he looked 70. He stood awkwardly in my doorway, eyes darting around my large corner office with its floor-to-ceiling windows and expensive furniture. "Mike," he said finally, his voice cracking. "You are successful." I did not stand or offer my hand. "What do you want?" He fumbled for words. "I found you on LinkedIn. Your picture came up in a story about that waterfront project you are doing." "That does not answer my question." He sank into the chair across from my desk. "I am dying, Mike. Cancer. Doctors give me maybe 1 year. I should have felt something, sadness, anger, anything, but I felt nothing." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said flatly. "But again, what do you want?" "Forgiveness, I guess," he murmured, "and Lily needs help." Of course, he was not here for reconciliation. He wanted something. "Lily is 21 now," he continued when I did not respond. "She is struggling, dropped out of college, got into drugs for a while. Is clean now." But he trailed off. "Where is Tiffany in all this?" I asked coldly. His face hardened. "We divorced 7 years ago. She cheated multiple times." I laughed. I could not help it. "You do not say." "I know you tried to tell me," he admitted. "I did not listen. I was a fool." "Yes, you were." I leaned back in my chair. "So what exactly do you want from me?" "Money." He looked down at his hands. "Lily needs a fresh start, a job maybe. She is smart, just lost." I stared at him, processing the absolute audacity of this request. The man who threw me away like garbage was now asking me to help the daughter he chose over me. "Get out," I said quietly. "Mike, please, get out." He stood shakily. "I deserve that. But Lily did not do anything wrong, she was just a child. That hit home. He was right. Lily had been an innocent victim in Tiffany's manipulation, just like me. Have her send her resume to my human resources department, I said finally. That is all I can offer. He nodded, relief washing over his face. Thank you. And Mike, for what it is worth, I am sorry. I failed you completely. After he left, I sat for a long time staring out the window at the city below. That night I told Jessica everything, the full unvarnished truth about my past that I had kept from her all these years. She held me as I finally let myself cry for the teenager who had lost everything. 2 weeks later, Lily came in for an interview. She looked startlingly like Ryan. Same red hair, same green eyes. She had no idea who I was. Dad apparently had not told her. I watched from my office as Human Resources put her through a standard interview for an administrative assistant position. She was smart, but clearly damaged, jumpy, insecure, with none of the confidence Tiffany had always exuded. Human Resources reported she was qualified but extremely nervous. Hire her, I told them, but do not tell her about our connection. For 3 months I watched Lily from a distance. She was a hard worker, eager to please, terrified of making mistakes. She reminded me of myself at 15, desperate for approval. Then one day, my assistant told me Lily was crying in the break room. Something about an eviction notice. She could not make rent because her roommate had moved out unexpectedly. It was time. I called her into my office. Lily, I am Mike Walker, I said as she nervously took a seat. I am the chief operating officer here. Yes, sir, she whispered, eyes wide with fear. I am sorry about the break room. It will not happen again. Do you know who I am? I asked. She shook her head. I am your brother. The color drained from her face. My what? Half-brother? I clarified. Same father, but I do not have a... She stopped, realization dawning. Oh my God, you're the brother my mom said was dangerous, I supplied. A predator, a liar. She nodded, looking horrified. Your mother fabricated those accusations to get rid of me because I caught her cheating with your biological father. Lily's hands flew to her mouth. What are you talking about? Steve is my dad. I took a deep breath. Did he ever tell you about the DNA test? For the next 1 hour I told her everything. How Tiffany had set me up. How I had lived on the streets. How I had clawed my way back from nothing. By the end, Lily was sobbing. I did not know, she kept saying. I swear I did not know. Mom told me you had gone to juvenile detention for hurting me, but I never remembered any of it. You were 6, I said gently. Tiffany manipulated you just like she manipulated everyone. I hate her, Lily said suddenly, fierce through her tears. She ruined everything. Dad is dying and she will not even visit him. Says she has moved on with her life coach or whatever. I made a decision then. Look, I have an in-law unit at my house. It is a separate apartment, totally private. You can stay there until you get back on your feet. No rent. Her eyes widened. Why would you help me after everything? Because you were an innocent kid just like I was. We were both Tiffany's victims. 2 days later, Lily moved into our guest house. Jessica was amazing with her, taking her shopping, helping her open a bank account, teaching her basic life skills Tiffany had never bothered with. The first few weeks with Lily living in our guest house were awkward as hell. She was quiet, jumpy, clearly uncomfortable accepting help. Jessica was amazing through all of it. Patient, kind, never pushing too hard. We would invite Lily for dinner, and she would sit at our table looking like she expected to be kicked out at any moment. Slowly, she started opening up, told us about growing up with Tiffany, how things got worse after the divorce, how Tiffany would bring home different men, leave Lily alone for days sometimes, how she had stolen Lily's identity to open credit cards when Lily turned 18, destroying her credit score before she even had a chance to build it. How she had sabotaged Lily's college applications because she did not want her to move away. She always told me you were a monster, Lily said one night over dinner. That you tried to hurt me and that is why you disappeared. But I never remembered anything happening. I used to have nightmares that you would come back and hurt me. But as I got older, I started wondering if it was even true. Did Dad ever talk about me, I asked. It was the first time I had asked about him directly. Lily shook her head. Not until after the divorce. It was like you never existed. All the photos of you disappeared. But after Mom left, he started drinking a lot. And sometimes he would mention you. Say he had made a terrible mistake. It was strange getting to know my sister as an adult. Finding out we had similar tastes in music. The same weird aversion to the texture of mushrooms. The same tendency to crack our knuckles when nervous. Little pieces of shared DNA asserting themselves despite everything. Jack adored her immediately. She became Auntie Lily, who would play superheroes with him for hours, never getting tired of his endless energy the way Jessica and I sometimes did. We were becoming a real family. And then Tiffany showed up almost exactly 1 month after Lily moved in. I got a call from a number I did not recognize while at work. Mike, the voice was unmistakable. Tiffany, is Lily with you? My stomach dropped. I had not heard that voice in 15 years, but it instantly transported me back to that kitchen, to the police officers, to the worst night of my life. "How did you get this number?" I demanded, trying to keep my voice steady. "Your father gave it to me," she said casually, as if we were old friends catching up. "Look, I know we have had our differences, but Lily needs to come home. She is not well." I laughed bitterly. "Differences? You accused me of molesting your daughter and made me homeless at 15. Those are not differences, Tiffany." She sighed dramatically. "Ancient history. We were all under a lot of stress back then, but Lily needs her mother now."
"Lily is fine," I said coldly.
"She is working at my company, living in my guest house, and finally learning what it is like to have people who actually care about her welfare." Silence then. "Your company guest house?" I could practically hear the wheels turning in her greedy mind. "Well, that is wonderful. I always knew you would do well, Mike. You were always so clever. Save it." Her voice turned wheedling. "I am in a bit of a financial bind. The alimony is barely enough to cover basics, and my business is not taking off as quickly as I had hoped." Of course, Tiffany was not concerned about Lily. She was looking for a new meal ticket. "What business is that?" I asked, already knowing it would be some MLM scheme. "I am a wellness coach," she said proudly, "helping people achieve their best selves through natural supplements and mindset work." "Fascinating," I replied. "And how much do you need?" "Just a loan," she said quickly. "Maybe $20,000. Just until my client base grows. I would pay you back, of course." "Of course," I echoed. "Why do not you come to my office tomorrow? We can discuss the details." I could practically hear her salivating through the phone. "That would be wonderful. Text me the address." I hung up and immediately called Jessica. "Tiffany contacted me," I told her. "She is looking for Lily." "Does Lily know?" Jessica asked. "Not yet, but I need to tell her. She deserves to know." That night, I sat down with Lily and explained that her mother had called. Her face went completely pale. "I do not want to see her," she said immediately. "Do not make me see her." "No one is making you do anything," I promised. "This is your home now. If you want it to be, I will handle Tiffany." I texted Tiffany back later that night, telling her to come to my office the next day if she wanted to talk. I gave her the company address, but not my direct line or floor number. Let her work for it a little. The next day, I had security escort Tiffany to the conference room rather than my office. I instructed them to have her go through the standard visitor protocol. ID check, sign in, visitor badge, and told them not to tell her I was the chief operating officer. Just that Mr. Walker would be with her shortly. Then I deliberately kept her waiting for 45 minutes. I used that time to center myself, practiced what I wanted to say, reminded myself that I was not that powerless kid anymore. I had my assistant bring the folders I had prepared, one with the photos my private investigator had gathered over the last 1 month. I had hired him the day after Lily moved in, suspecting Tiffany might show up eventually, and another with the restraining order paperwork I had my lawyer draft. When I finally walked in, she gasped. I was not the scrawny 15-year-old kid anymore. I was 6 feet 2 inches, fit from regular gym sessions. Working out had become my therapy over the years, dressed in a custom suit that cost more than she probably made in 1 month. I looked successful, confident, everything she had tried to prevent me from becoming. "Mike," she gushed, standing to hug me. I stepped back. "Sit down, Tiffany." Her smile faltered but remained fixed as she perched on the edge of a chair. "You look great," she tried. "So successful. I always told Steve you were smart." "Let us skip the bullshit," I said flatly. "You wanted money?" She shifted uncomfortably. "Well, yes, just a small loan to get back on my feet." I pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. "Open it." Inside were photos, dozens of them. Tiffany with various men in hotels, restaurants, parks. Tiffany buying pills in a parking lot. Tiffany texting while driving. "What is this?" she whispered, face ashen. "Insurance," I replied. "I hired a private investigator when Lily told me you were trying to manipulate her into moving back in with you." "You cannot." "I can do whatever I want," I interrupted. "I am not a helpless kid anymore. You destroyed my life once. You do not get a second chance." I pushed another folder toward her. "This is a restraining order. You are not to contact me, my wife, my son, or Lily again. Ever." "Lily is my daughter," she hissed, showing her true colors at last. "Actually, she is Ryan Kendrick's daughter," I corrected her. "And he is dead, so legally she is no one's daughter. She is an adult who wants nothing to do with you." Tiffany's face contorted with rage. "You think you are so much better than me now with your fancy office and your money? You are still that pathetic little boy no one wanted." I smiled coolly. "You know what is interesting, Tiffany? I used to hate you. I fantasized about destroying you, making you suffer like I suffered. But now looking at you, I feel nothing. You are just a sad aging woman whose looks are fading, whose scams are not working anymore, whose daughter wants nothing to do with her. You have already destroyed yourself better than I ever could." I stood up. "Security will show you out. If you contact any of us again, those photos go to the police, your probation officer, and every one of your clients. Are we clear?" She stared at me, hatred burning in her eyes. "This is not over. It is for me, I said, walking to the door. I have a family dinner to get to. Dad is coming. He has moved into a hospice facility near us. Lily has been visiting him daily. Jessica's parents are coming too. It is our wedding anniversary. As security led her away, I saw something I never expected. Tiffany was crying. Not her fake manipulative tears, but real ones. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. That night, sitting at the head of our dining table, looking at Jessica, Jack playing with his food, Lily laughing at something my father-in-law said, and even my dying father smiling weakly from his wheelchair, I realized something important. The best revenge was not hurting Tiffany. It was not taking her daughter or humiliating her or exposing her lies. The best revenge was building a happy, successful life that she could never touch, creating a family based on love and trust instead of manipulation, becoming someone who could break the cycle instead of continuing it. As I raised my glass for a toast, I silently thanked Frank, Tony, Jessica, and everyone else who helped me along the way. But most of all, I thanked that terrified 15-year-old kid who refused to be broken, who survived when everything was against him, and who never gave up hope that someday things would get better. They did.